Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. After being abandoned by their parents, 4 siblings end up in an orphanage and are sent to different foster homes. In order to reunite their family, they count on their nanny to help them bring their parents back home. Today we will recap the story of the movie, The Willoughbys, from 2020. The Willoughbys are an unconventional family. They live hidden away from the modern world in an old-fashioned house, and their legacy is passed on through magnificent mustaches. The mustaches follow the family generation after generation, until Walter, who married Helga, and together they had their first child. Since he was a baby, Tim was neglected by his parents, who did not have enough love to share with him. Later, the couple had a daughter named Jane, and then 2 twins. Both were named Barnaby. As the years went by, Walter and Helga became even stingier, and even the food they no longer shared with their children. Hungry, Jane decides to steal the meatloaf that her parents intended to have for dinner and devours it while they are distracted talking to Tim. When they realize what has happened, the couple decides to hold their firstborn son responsible for what happened, and Walter locks the boy in the basement as punishment. Despite adversity, the Willoughby children still had hope for a better life. One night, during a thunderstorm, the youngsters hear a loud scream coming from outside the house, and Jane decides to go out to investigate together with her younger siblings. However, the moment the girl opens the box, a terrifying creature attacks her. The next morning, Tim manages to escape from his punishment and goes to the library. When he gets there, the young man discovers that his siblings rescued a baby the night before and tries to convince Jane to get rid of that creature, since he knows that his parents hate children. While the pair are arguing, the orphan girl manages to escape and ends up in the couple's bedroom. Tim immediately rushes over to get the baby back, but his parents are furious at the sight of another child and throw all their children out of the house. If they are to return, the youngsters will have to find a way to get rid of that baby, so Jane decides to go after a home for him. For the first time in his life, Tim leaves home and follows his sister through the streets until he arrives at a seemingly perfect house. Breaking through the gates, the Willoughbys spot a rainbow pond filled with chubby ducks and cross the bridge until they reach the house. However, when they look through the window, the children realize that the place is actually a candy factory. Before she leaves, Jane decides to give the baby a name and asks Tim to help her choose one that matches it. So the boy decides to call her Ruth, and after saying goodbye to the child, the girl rings the bell. It doesn't take long before a mustachioed man shows up at the door to pick her up, and Tim is delighted with that guy's magnificent mustache. On the way home, the 4 siblings begin to theorize about what it would be like if they belonged to another family, and Jane comes to the conclusion that their lives would be better if they were orphans. However, to do so, they need to find a way to get rid of their parents. So the children decide to enlist the help of a travel agency to do the job. Since they have no money to pay for the service, they take one of the agency's brochures and go home to plan the couple's next adventure. Tim's plan is to schedule activities that involve a lot of danger to increase the chances that his parents will die for real and never return home again. After finalizing the lethal tour schedule and informing them that children are forbidden on that trip, Tim arranges to hand them the pamphlet. Upon seeing the roll, the couple is initially scared, but when they discover that this is a great opportunity, they decide to go on a trip and spend some time away from their obnoxious children. When they both leave the house, the youngsters celebrate and make a big mess of the mansion, in an attempt to take back all the times their parents have kept them from having fun. Before going to sleep, Tim removes the framed picture of his parents from the wall and throws it into the basement. Then he puts the picture of his Uncle Edmund in its place. One of the boy's dreams is to have a big mustache, just like the ones the great men in his family had. On the first morning without his parents around, Tim has his dream interrupted by his siblings, who have come to his room to wake him up to say that they are hungry. Since the boy is the eldest of his siblings, he feels responsible for providing for the family and decides to serve an old lobster for dinner. After he presents the menu, Jane decides to go to the house where she left Ruth in search of something decent to eat, but Tim tries to stop her. While they are arguing, an unknown woman approaches the door and abruptly enters the mansion. Linda soon introduces herself as a nanny and informs them that the children's parents have hired her to look after them while they are away. Upon hearing this, the young kids are terrified, for they know that if it were up to their parents, that woman is probably there to cause them harm. However, it doesn't take long before Jane begins to trust Linda and her siblings begin to worry about the girl. Therefore, Tim begins to think of a plan to get rid of her and enlists the Barnabys' help to execute his idea. He then discovers that the twins have a contraption, similar to a catapult, capable of throwing the nanny far away. However, when the woman offers to go into the kitchen to prepare breakfast, she manages to win the children's hearts. In protest, Tim refuses to eat, but his nanny insists until the boy accidentally throws porridge in his face. At this point, both he and his siblings believe that they will be punished and locked in the basement, but Linda states that she would never do that. While talking to those youngsters, the nanny discovers that they found an orphaned child a few days earlier and took her to the town's candy factory to be adopted. Worried about the baby's health, the woman decides to go there to check on her and discovers that Ruth has been adopted by Commander Melanoff. Upon arriving at the house, Linda tries to pick up the baby. However, she is extremely agitated due to the excess sugar she has ingested. So the woman goes after the little creature and, with Melanoff's help, manages to catch up with it before it is sent to the incinerator. The man is relieved to know that his baby is okay and is scolded by the nanny for letting him eat so much candy. While feeding Ruth real food, the commander begins to vent about the challenges of being a single parent and informs that he has even reached out to the orphan service for help because he hasn't been able to sleep properly for 9 nights. Upon hearing this, Linda gets upset and advises the man never to call that company as they are terrible people who have no love for children. However, Melanoff states that he does not intend to give the baby to them, as he has already become attached to the girl and intends to raise her as if she were his own daughter. Seeing those two adults talking about the child's health, the Willoughby siblings witness, for the first time, a display of genuine affection and are amazed at such care. Before leaving, the children bid Commander Melanoff farewell with a hug and the man gives Tim a piece of candy as a present. Meanwhile, their parents are enjoying their honeymoon without worrying about surviving any of the challenges that the children have carefully chosen for them. The couple is so preoccupied with enjoying their vacation that they don't even realize the trouble they are getting into, and luckily they manage to get out of it all. However, when their financial reserve comes to an end, they discover that they will have to return home, and Helga laments the fact that she will have to see her children again. At this moment, their tour guide gives them the idea of selling their house on the internet, and the couple readily accepts this suggestion. On the bus on the way home, Tim decides to open the candy he got from Melanoff and shares the contents of the package with his nanny. When Linda gets home, she receives a message from Walter and the boy is curious to know what he said, because by now he believed that his parents had been devoured by rabid bears. The young man takes out her cell phone and listens to the audio of his father saying that he is going to sell the house. Immediately, he rushes to break the news to his siblings and tries to convince them that the nanny is a double agent sent by their parents to manipulate the children. Suddenly, Irene Holmes appears and puts a sign in front of the old mansion, announcing that it is for sale. During the night, the children decide to put their plan into practice to prevent the house from being sold, and to prevent unforeseen events from happening. They decide to lock Linda in her room. Hiding from his siblings, Tim makes a drastic decision and calls the orphan service to report his nanny, claiming that she is a terrible caregiver. The next morning, Irene opens the house for visitors and the attacks begin the moment the first visitor tries to open the door. Upon touching the doorknob, the man is electrocuted and thrown away. Still, the other visitors decide to enter and are attacked in various ways. When they least expect it, they set traps and take a blow strong enough to drive them out of the mansion. Irene is extremely stressed about not being able to sell the house to any visitors, but her problem comes to an end when the perfect family shows up and decides that this will be their future home. Everything was going well until they go on a visit to the library and a sinister voice kicks them out. Startled, the Willoughby siblings decide to go and investigate what is up there, for this monster is not of their making. When they enter the room, the youngsters see a giant spider and start to believe that this will be the end for them. However, when the creature takes off its mask, it reveals its true identity and they discover that it is their nanny trying to scare off visitors so that the house will not be sold. At this point, Tim is confused, as he doesn't understand why the woman is helping the children, since she works for her parents. Then Linda states that her commitment is to take care of those young people and the only reason she didn't give notice of the sale of the house is because she didn't want to see them sad. At that moment, the children feel relieved and hug their nanny. For the first time, Tim is able to trust an adult and thanks the woman for all she has done for him and his siblings. While hugging her, they hear a vehicle parking outside, and suddenly the orphan service agents burst in. Upon seeing them, Linda becomes desperate and informs the children that they need to run away. While trying to find a way out, the woman realizes that she is surrounded and tries to prevent the Willoughby siblings from being taken away. After all, they are not orphans. While the nanny is arguing with those people, one of the agents approaches and manages to recognize her. He claims that Linda was an orphan and that the department tried to find a family for her, but no one wanted her. Upon hearing this, Jane states that they love the woman and want to stay with her. Then, the agent turns on a voice recording, in which Tim states that his nanny is bad and wishes to get rid of her. When they hear this statement, her siblings are furious with the boy and Linda feels very hurt, because since she arrived in that house she has been doing her best to take care of the children. Pressured by the agent, the woman leaves and the siblings are taken separately to different homes until their biological parents return. The Barnabys have been sent to a technological home and have immersed themselves in the internet. Jane, on the other hand, has been adopted by a family that believes in the healing power of music and parties all day long. Eventually, Tim refused to be adopted and ran away from every family that was willing to adopt him. However, when he found out that his home was sold and demolished soon after, the boy gave up fighting and accepted his sad fate. After suffering one of the biggest disappointments of her life, Linda decided to leave town and start her life over elsewhere. The nanny is on a bus heading to her new life when a cat appears in the middle of the road and forces the driver to stop the vehicle. The animal was inside a helmet, and Linda soon realizes that this object belongs to Tim. She takes this as a message from the universe and decides to do something to bring the Willoughby siblings together again. The next morning, Tim is in his cell in the orphan service department when he receives an unexpected visit from his nanny, who is dressed up as an official and asks him to call her Phil. Linda orders the boy to get into the porridge cart and help her get her family back. Moved by the nanny's attitude even after all that has happened, Tim gets into the cart and they both manage to escape through the halls. Just as they are about to arrive at the door, one of the agents shows up and investigates the porridge cart. At this point, the duo takes the opportunity to escape, but the real Phil shows up and Linda is unmasked. The nanny quickly runs into the parking lot and steals a car. The security guards try to close the gate to prevent her from leaving, but Linda manages to escape. Their first stop is to rescue the Barnabys, and then the family goes to the house where Jane is living. The girl is furious with her older brother, but accepts his apology and the group manages to escape before the orphan service shows up. Linda then comes to the conclusion that as long as they think the children are orphans, the agents will never give up on getting them. So the Willoughby siblings decide to go after their parents, for only then can they remain together. Since it was the children who made the couple's entire travel itinerary, they know that their parents are now going to Switzerland. Therefore, they ask for Commander Melanoff's help in getting a means of transportation that will enable them to get there as quickly as possible. The group then uses the factory machinery to build an airship made of candy. Linda and Melanoff prepare to embark with the youngsters, but they wish to spare them from all the confusion and decide to embark alone on the mission to rescue their parents. While the children are exploring the skies, leaving a trail of rainbows wherever they go, the couple is climbing a snow mountain and can't get down before it starts to freeze. Now that their lives hang by a thread, Helga and Walter realize what a big mistake they have made and regret having neglected their children. When they realize that they are about to freeze to death, the two lovebirds kiss each other one last goodbye and thank each other for the privilege of being together until the last moment. After long hours of travel, the Willoughby siblings arrive at their final destination and realize that finding their parents won't be as easy as they imagined, because they could be anywhere. Luckily, while climbing the mountain, Helga accidentally dropped her red ball of thread, and the children use the thread to guide themselves, which allows them to find the couple's location. When they reach the top of the mountain, the siblings spot thousands of piles of snow, and Tim soon begins to worry, as he believes that his parents have become yet another victim of that frozen graveyard. The quartet tries to find the hill on which their parents are buried, but is unsuccessful, for this task is like looking for a needle in a haystack. If they don't find the couple soon, the children will soon freeze too. Suddenly, however, they hear a familiar noise and approach one of the mounds of ice. When they remove the snow, the youngsters find their parents and discover that the noise they were hearing was caused by their kiss, which remained warm even in those extreme conditions. Immediately, the children turn on the heaters to thaw them out and celebrate the fact that their parents are still alive. For the first time in their lives, Helga and Walter were happy to see their children, because if the children had not shown up, they would have frozen to death. The couple asks how the youngsters managed to find them, and Tim decides to reveal the whole truth. The boy tells them that they were the ones who planned that trip and did it because they wanted to get rid of their parents. However, they ended up in a bad spot and now need the couple to return home so that the four siblings can stay together. Tim knows that his parents don't love them, but he is willing to go back to his unhappy life if that is what it takes to keep his siblings from splitting up. Upon hearing this, the couple realize what a big mistake they have made in not loving their children and say they are sorry for their conduct. In this instant, the children begin to harbor the hope that perhaps they can be loved, but are soon faced with the sad reality. Once again, they are abandoned by their parents who, after knocking them down in the snow, steal the airship and drive away, leaving the Willoughby siblings behind. When they realize what has just happened, the young kids are incredulous, for they risked their own lives to save them and now they have been left for dead. However, this time, the couple does not make it, as they suffer a serious accident when the vehicle crashes into a pointy rock and all the air escapes from inside, sending the couple far away. As the hours pass, the snowstorm intensifies and all the heat source that the children used to thaw their parents is destroyed. So Tim has the idea of following the ball of thread down the mountain, but the thread is completely frozen and ends up breaking. With no other choice, the four siblings accept their sad fate and are happy to have each other to the end. Although there is no longer any hope, they are happier together on that snow mountain than they are separated in foster care. However, when they least expect it, Ruth appears and rescues them from that prison of ice. As they look up, they spot a helicopter and Linda runs to hug them. After making sure that the youngsters are okay, the woman asks where their parents are and is astonished to discover that the couple abandoned their children to die on that mountain. Nevertheless, it was they who were screwed, and now the children have become real orphans. However, this sad story turns into a happy ending when Linda and Commander Melanoff decide to adopt the 4 siblings and the group becomes one big family. After that day, everyone moved into the candy factory together, and the children finally got to experience what it is like to receive love from real parents who support them and care about their well-being. Meanwhile, Helga and Walter try to survive in the middle of the ocean and manage to enjoy their great love even at the last moment, when they are devoured by a shark. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.